Good morning or afternoon or evening, Computer Science Essentials students. This is Mr. Benoit going over what we are going to be doing today or the early part of the week for Monday, March 30th. So we're going to keep getting into Python, which is the Solving with Syntax unit in PLTW. Specifically, we'll be going through Code High School, Introduction to Python with Tracy the Turtle, lessons 2.6 through 2.10, which goes over comments, variables, functions, artistic effects, and top-down design. So to get you thinking about what's going on, how far have you gotten into Code High School? And, is there a connection there between your effort and results? So pause this video for 10, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever you need, and keep the answers to, come up with your answers to those two questions and think what they are and have them ready in your mind. Okay, so go ahead and pause now. Okay, so going forward, kind of the big essential questions for this unit are, how can I solve big problems? How do I take a big problem and get it done, get through everything that needs to get done? Second question, why do functions make code easier to develop, easier to debug, and easier to maintain? Third question is, what's in a name? Famous old Shakespeare question. Why do we want to name variables and functions with specific names like draw a row of circles or move up a row, instead of just calling them my function one, my variable two, names like that, right? So by the end of these 5 lessons, this should be clear. So objectives for these lessons, so following 15 minutes of guided practice, you will be able to document the functionality of your pyramid of circles code, describing what each of the set position, for, and circle elements are doing. And then following 30 minutes of guided practice, you will be able to decompose problems into pieces to solve them using functions, loops, or other simple blocks of code. And then kind of the big objective is, after completing all 5 of these lessons, you'll be able to create, using top-down design, a program that will fill the screen with rows and columns of one shape alternating colors, like a checkerboard design, something like that. And hint, that may be an upcoming quiz. So resources, we're going to be using Code High School, their Introduction to Python with Tracy the Turtle, which is what you signed up for when you entered that code from last Monday. Lessons 2.1 through 2.6, right? So these are now assigned to you. They are due by Friday, April 3rd, 2 p.m., right? And along with completing those 5 units and going through all of those examples and practice problems, you also need to complete that Google Doc, which will take a screenshot of your progress page and show me what you've done, and you'll also answer a couple of reflection questions. Not too much. Now, there's a couple of specific things I wanted to show you and talk about. So let me switch to my other screen here. Right, so here's the slides for top-down design. Here's slides for comments. Right, here's the slides for naming guidelines. In the naming guidelines, Code High School is being pretty picky on how they do things in Python. They want you to use, so you can't have spaces in variable names or function names. They want you to use underscores instead of spaces and only lowercase letters. There is another way of doing coding, which is called camel case. So there is another way of doing it, and that's called camel case. So Python, traditionally, people use all lowercase with underscores, and so your names tend to look like this. There's another standard I mentioned. It's called camel case, and it's called camel case because it has humps in it. Every time you get to a new word, you're going to capitalize the first letter of that word, right? So you're going to just merge words together and capitalize as you go along to make it understandable, right? So in lowercase, like they use In Python, you would have draw underscore row underscore of underscore circles, or move up a row. And in camel case, it's draw a row of circles, move up a row. There's not a major difference between the two of them. The lowercase one tends to come up with longer variable or function names. And if you are if you get into a situation where characters matter, camel case is a little bit more efficient. But you do whichever one makes more sense to you, whichever one you prefer. I don't care in this class. Okay, so that's naming rules. There's a section then on functions. So in MIT App Inventor, we could create our own procedures. In Vex Coding Studio, you could code your own event handlers. In Python, they are functions, and you're going to learn how to, you're going to spot code that you're doing over and over, and you're going to put that into one function that you can call so that you have, less lines of code to develop, less lines of code to debug. One of those, computer science people like to be efficient things, right? So we have comments, we have variable names and function names, giving things good names. Here's what we look for when we're writing functions and why we do it. Then they're going to show you how Tracy can do some more interesting things like a filled circle or drawing other shapes like triangles and polygons using that same circle command, and they will go through that there. And then the last big idea is top-down design. How do we take a big problem and decompose it into smaller pieces, like planning a Thanksgiving dinner with all of your family, 20, 30 people coming over. That's a big problem, right? So what are kind of the major things you need to think about? Who's coming? How are you going to invite them, get them all here? What are you going to do for food, right? What's the menu? What does each one specifically take to do? And then tables and chairs and cutlery and all that stuff, right? So here's kind of, what are the three big things you need to do inside of that big problem, and then go into details in each one. Okay, for guests, who are they? Who's going to invite? How do you know who's coming? Who's responded? Who's showing up late, right? And then, food. Well, specifically, what dishes are you going to do? What is your shopping list? How do you cook all of them? And then if you need these 10 things to all be ready for dinner at 5 p.m., when do you need to start them? How many things do you have going on at once? Can you do that on your own? Okay, so that's top-down design, is just taking that big problem, breaking it down into the next level pieces, taking those pieces and breaking them down into the next level until you get down to simple things that you know how to solve. Right? And so their example is, how can I make a grid of circles, something that kind of looks like a bubble wrap, right? So instead of just trying to brute force this and draw one circle, move over a bit, draw another circle, move over a bit, right? How would you decompose this into just a few smaller things that you could do over and over really easily? And the code is super, super efficient, not just for running, but to look at it, it's easy to understand, easy to debug and do all that stuff. Okay, so that's this week. This is what we're doing. Love to see you in virtual class Monday and Wednesday, either 9 to 10 for period 2 or 11 to 12 to period 3. And as always, you can just send me an email to get help, right? Or start a conversation in Code High School. That's it for today. Thank you very much. Have a great one. Hope you're all healthy and well, and talk to you soon.